Life University focuses in on 5 key areas. It focuses on family, finance, health, education, and leadership. Jesus came and he said, I come that you might have life and that you might have that life more abundantly. Here at the Tabernacle, we believe that even when someone gives their life to Jesus Christ and they're saved, they still have to live in this world. They still have to live in this earth. And we believe that people are not going to experience the abundant life when their finances are a mess, when their families are falling apart, when there's an absence of leadership, when health is failing, or people are undereducated. So in an effort to help combat some of those ills in our society, we do Life University once a month, the 4th Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8 o'clock p.m., and we bring in an expert from the community to speak in one of those 5 key areas in an effort to help us to know more about those areas. We believe around the Tabernacle, if we know better, we'll do better. And the Bible talks about, our people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So knowledge isn't just power, knowledge is life. And so it's so important for us to increase knowledge, and our communities are better because of it. Tonight, we're going to be focusing in on education. The school year has just begun, and we wanted to make sure that parents and grandparents and caregivers and people who have custody of little ones that are in school are equipped for their children to have the best education that they can have this school year. And so we want to begin now. We know parent-teacher conferences will be coming up and things like that. The first quarter is about halfway over. And so we're going to give you some tools tonight that are going to help your children do better in school. And our guest faculty tonight is someone who is a veteran teacher in the Toledo Public School District. She's been teaching for many years. And I want to welcome to the stage tonight my wife, Christine Sweeney. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome and for that great introduction. I am very happy to be his wife. Wouldn't have chosen anyone else. Just want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and I hope that what you get, you will share. Because when we share what we learn, we allow someone else to learn, and they can pass that information on. And when we pass information on to others, we can empower a community and empower families. And so when I thought about doing this workshop tonight, I thought about how important it was for parents to really receive key information. You come into a school year, and a lot of times parents are just at a loss as how to help their children. When we think about it, every parent wants their child to do well. Every parent wants their child to do better than what they've done. So I want to spend some time tonight, and before I get started, I just want to give you a little background about my experience. One, I've been a student, been through school myself, went to the University of Toledo, received my bachelor's degree in elementary education, and I've been a teacher for the last 15 years in Toledo Public Schools. I've taught every grade from 2nd grade to 8th grade. Some are more my favorite than others, but I've had an opportunity to work with children at various different levels. I've also had an opportunity to work in various capacities in different schools, from working on the building leadership team, to working on the intervention response team, to being a part of forming alliances with parents and doing things like literacy nights and family math nights and science nights. I'm also involved with our PTO. So I've operated in a lot of different areas as far as education goes. In addition to being a teacher, I'm also a parent. I have 4 children of my own. I have a senior who goes to start high school. I have a junior that goes to Toledo Technology Academy. I have a freshman at Bowser High School, and I have my precious 4th grader who goes to Burndale Elementary, where I happen to be teaching right now. So I know what it's like to be a parent. I also know what it's like to be a teacher. So I've seen both sides of the coin. So when I speak tonight, I want you to know I'm speaking not only as a teacher, but I'm also speaking as a parent. I want to go to our second slide because it has a really powerful quote about parents. It says, parents are the ultimate role model for children. Every word, movement, and action has an effect. No other person or outside force has a greater influence on a child than a parent. I know when we talk about education, we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about school districts. We talk about public versus private. We talk about money that's spent. We talk about testing. But when we really think about it and when we look at the research, we find that parental involvement is the primary indicator of a student's success. If you want to know if a child is going to be successful, you can gauge it by how involved adults are in their educational process. We can look at all the other factors. We can have conversations. We can talk about the amount of money that is spent in various places. But the number one indicator of a student's success is parental involvement. And so that's what we're going to focus on tonight, because as we look at the next slide, you'll find that there's a lot of different areas that are affected when parents are involved. When parents are involved, students earn better grades. Students get better test scores. Students even enjoy going to school more, and they're more likely to graduate from high school and attend college. All of those things happen when parents are involved intentionally in their child's education. So as we prepare to discuss how you can help your students be more successful this year, I need all of us in this room, whether we're parents, grandparents, guardians, or just adults that have some sort of interest in helping young people. I need us to understand how important our role is. Without our direct involvement, our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, etc., they just won't reach their full potential. They may do a certain level of achievement, but that achievement could be higher if we are intentionally involved in their life. So despite what people's thoughts are about your current involvement in your child's education, one thing is certain: you want your child to succeed. Every parent wants their child to do better. And so for that reason, tonight I'm just going to share some very simple, very practical ways, using just the first 3 letters of the alphabet, to help you guide your child to having a more successful school year. I didn't go through all 26. All right. So as we look at the next slide, we'll start with the letter A. The letter A means that as a parent, we must be aware. You must have awareness. It's really important to be aware of some key things. So we're going to go through 7 things that every parent should be aware of or know. So as we look at it, the first thing that every parent should be aware of or know is know what goes on at your child's school. That's really key. I know that seems and sounds very simple, but you kind of need to read the materials that come home from the school. I'm going to give you a personal example. We put it on the marquee outside of the building. We put information in the newsletter. Teachers send home a weekly memo or a weekly letter that there's going to be a 2-hour delay on a Wednesday morning. And it does not fail every single 2-hour delay day. As I pull up to the building ready to go in for my professional development session, there's a child sitting on the bench that the parent has told to walk to school, or that the parent has walked to school and left there. And we have to take that child into the office, and we have to make a phone call after the all call has already gone out. And we have to say, "Excuse me, sir or madam, school doesn't start until such and such time." And the child hangs their head, and the parent feels embarrassed about coming to the building to pick the child up. But it simply came from not knowing what was going on at the child's school. I know we're all busy. I know there are a lot of things that our kids are involved in. There's a lot of things that we're doing. And so taking that extra time to read those materials can sometimes seem like a bother. But if you take a few minutes to read the materials that come home, you'll spare yourself some time and effort, and you'll also encourage your child to read things that come home as well. Not only do you need to read the materials that come home, but you need to attend parent nights. If there's a parent-teacher organization, there's information that's shared during those meetings that might not come home in the bulletin. You'll get information prior to everyone else. You'll know when fundraisers will be done. You'll know different initiatives that other parents are trying to get going at your schools. And believe it or not, one of the most powerful things that happens in a school is when parents get together. Because it's not only teachers that influence your child's education, but it's parents as well. Another thing that will seem quite simple when we talk about knowing what's going on at your child's school is to have a conversation with your child daily about what happened in the school day. Now, I know when I first wrote that in my notes, I kind of rolled my eyes. So if you rolled your eyes at me, I understand, because I understand what the conversations sound like at the end of a school day. Your kids get in the car or they walk up to you when you meet them outside the school building. You say something to them like, "How did your day go today?" And they say one-word answers, "Good." And then you try and, bolster a little extra courage and you say, "Well, what did you do today? What did you learn?" And they say, "Nothing." And you say, "Well, you were gone for several hours. Didn't you at least learn one thing?" And then they mutter and they give you maybe a 3-word answer. But believe it or not, that conversation is needed every single day, because if anything significant ever does happen, that's when they'll share it. That moment when you first connect is so important to knowing what's going on in your child's school. The next thing you need to know, and it's really important, is know whom to contact if you have questions. We all have different questions come to our mind about what's going on in the school and what's going on with our student, but sometimes we take those questions to the wrong people. It's kind of like if I had a question about math, I shouldn't go talk to the English teacher. I'm not going to get a really great answer there. So when you have questions about what's going on in the classroom, the principal really isn't the best person to go to. The first line of questioning should go to the teacher. Believe it or not, the teacher will welcome questions from you versus getting that directive from the principal. When they hear from the principal first instead of talking to you first, they feel defensive. The same way you would feel if someone went to your boss or your supervisor rather than coming to you. So if you have a question about the classroom, go to the teacher. If you have questions about discipline or about policies, then you go to the principal. I know you like to think the teacher has all the answers about all the rules and regulations, but believe it or not, we really don't have that much say when it comes to those issues. If you have a question about schedules or about testing or about different resources that are available, the guidance counselor is the person you need to talk to, specifically at the high school level. If you have a question about the menu or the food, breakfast, lunch applications, again, not the teacher, not the principal, we actually have food service workers that can help answer those questions. So it's all about knowing who to talk to about the various questions that you have. And if you have a general question, give the office a call, because the secretaries are the guardians of the building. If the teachers don't know, the principals don't know, if food service doesn't know, I can almost guarantee you that the secretary at the front desk, if she doesn't know the answer, will find it for you. So you want to know who to contact if you have questions. Number 3, know the principal. You need to take the time to meet the principal personally and to talk with them at different events. The last thing you want is for the very first time you meet the principal is when you have an issue. So take the time to go and meet them. Introduce yourself. Introduce your child. Tell what grade they're in. When you see them at basketball games or at football games or at other events, take the time to say hello and just to speak and be friendly. A principal is much more likely to assist you if they know you before you have an issue. In addition, know other parents and talk with them regularly. As I mentioned before, there's power when parents come together. They can be great resources. Sometimes one parent will have an answer to an issue that you have, and you might have an answer to an issue that they're facing. Parents can be a great resource to one another. The next one is really key. Know your child's friends. The other influence in our children's lives is not only the parent and not only the teacher, but the children that they hang around with. Oftentimes, I'll watch in my classroom as different children get connected, and we all know the saying, birds of a feather flock together. Who your children hang around with and the habits that they exhibit rub off on their academic success. If you notice that you have a student that's a 3.0, 4.0 student, and all of a sudden they're getting a 2.5 or lower, you need to ask them, do you have some new friends? Because whether or not we want to acknowledge it or not, peer pressure is existing in our schools. And so they may have connected with someone that thinks school is foolish, or school isn't cool, or they don't need to do their homework, or why are you working so hard? You need to check who they're connecting with. You need to be familiar with who they're texting, with who they're snapping, with who they're doing all their interactions with, because those interactions influence their behavior, and they also influence their academic achievement. So these are some of the things parents should know. You should also know your child's teacher. You should not just see them once a year at parent-teacher conference and at open house. They actually are there daily to get to know you and to get to know your students better. Do nice things, like if you notice they do something really nice for your child, send an email or a note that says thank you. When you see them out and about, don't try and act like you don't see them, but maybe wave and engage them, because they're as vested in your child's success as you are. And then finally, know your child's capabilities and limitations. When they come into our classroom, we're just getting to know them. But you know what they do really well, and you know what they struggle at. You know what they respond to as far as rewards and as far as consequences. That's valuable information to bring to the school, because if you know your child responds to praise, guess what I'm going to do in my classroom? I'm going to make sure I give them lots of praise. If your child responds to like stickers or stars, let me know that. Then I can use that to help draw them into the educational process. But if you're holding all this information about what your child is strong at and what your child is weak at, it takes me some time to discover it. Share that information, because education really is a partnership between parents, teachers, and students. And so we have to work together, and when you know what your child is strong at and weak at, you can also assist them at home. Sometimes there's 30 students in a classroom. A teacher may want to help every single child individually, but it's just not possible. But you as a parent have the power to help them build up their strengths and their weaknesses. I tell my students all the time, if you have a part of your game that you're weak at, you got to work at that. Shaquille O'Neal needed to work on his foul shots. Right? He didn't need to practice going to the block. He was strong there. But he needed to pay attention to his foul shots. Perhaps if someone had worked with him one-on-one, lots and lots of times, he may have progressed in that skill. The same is true of your children. Don't say to them, oh, I wasn't good at that either. No, let's look for ways to build them up in those areas. So we have to be aware. We have to have knowledge. In addition, we also have to have availability. We have to have availability. As parents, there's some different ways we can show that we're available. Ways that we can be available, first way is really important, is by providing up-to-date contact information to your child's teacher and school staff. There's nothing worse than something going on in the classroom, and you pick up the contact information, and you make the phone call, and you hear, doo-doo-doo, the number you have reached is no longer in service. Or the number you've reached right now is no longer in service, or the number has been changed, or you get someone else and they're like, I don't know who you're talking about. This isn't their phone. It can be a medical emergency. It can be an academic emergency. It can just be a child having a bad day that needs to connect with a parent. And when we don't have up-to-date information, you've just made yourself unavailable to the teacher and to your child. You can also make yourself available by responding to correspondence from the child's school personnel. If a teacher sends home a note or a principal sends home a note or they're making a phone call, guess what? You shouldn't really hit the reject button. You shouldn't just kind of file that in the circular file cabinet. They need a response. Your response is really important to them continuing to service your child in the best possible way. Again, talking with your child, be available not only to the teachers and not only to the school staff, but to your children. Do you have enough time at the end of the day to slow it down and talk with them? If you have capability, volunteer at your child's school. The more they see your face, the more they know you're involved, the more likely they are to work hard to make sure that you're happy. I can tell you as a teacher, the parents that are highly involved, the parents that are highly visible, teachers automatically work extra hard to make sure that child and that parent is happy. But guess what? If you're a ghost, if they don't see you, just being honest, that child kind of goes into a category where, okay, I'll treat them well, but I might not go that extra step. Parents, when you're visible, you make the teachers, you make the staff, you make everyone that's working with that child go the extra mile because they know you're going the extra mile. You also want to take your kids to the library and to find other resources that he or she might need for a school project or assignment. And I know we get the information sometimes at the last minute. Can I get an amen? You know, your child will come home and they'll be like, Mom, I need a poster. And you're like, you do? When? Tomorrow? Well, how long have you known about this assignment? 2 weeks. How long? 2 weeks. And when do you need the poster? Tomorrow. And you waited until 9:45 p.m. to tell me. I'm sorry. Whatever it is that they need, even when it's inconvenient, you need to make yourself available. If your child needs to go to the library, you need to take them. If they need to get on a computer and you don't have a computer at home, there are resources now in the community that you don't have to say, honey, we don't have a computer. You need to make yourself available. And the reason you need to make yourself available is because when you show that education is important, your child will see it as important as well. So you need to be aware, and you need to be available. Moving on to the letter B. The letter B means that as parents, we must be consistent. We must be consistent. This is probably the easiest but most neglected way to impact your students' academic success. The very simplest and most powerful thing you can do is establish a routine. You will be amazed at some of the different ways that students describe to me that they do homework in front of the TV, at the table, which explains why it's food everywhere on the paper, playing a video game, playing with the dog, which is why the dog ate the homework, on the phone with their friend who was also doing the homework while eating dinner, listening to music, and watching TV. There needs to be some consistency in the routine. Consistency creates comfort, and comfort creates confidence. I'm going to say that again. Consistency creates comfort. When your child knows what's going to happen every single day, they get really comfortable with that routine. They know it's going to happen. They know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and they're set. They feel really comfortable. And when a child feels really comfortable, they also feel really confident. And that's from very, very little all the way up. Sometimes we think like younger kids need our help, but when they get into high school, oh, they've got it down. Believe it or not, high school students still need that parent support. Middle school students still need that parent support. We see a lot of parent support from K through 5, but once they hit 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, parents disappear. And that's where so many of our students connect with wrong classmates, connect with wrong habits, and we watch them falter academically. So, establishing a routine, have a specific homework time. The kids are going to hate me, but whether or not they have homework, there should be a certain amount of time every night that's set for homework. You just need to say from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, that's homework time. When you get home, have a snack, go play, talk on the phone, but at 4 o'clock, you need to be back at the house at this table to do homework. And they're going to say, I don't have homework. And you're going to go, fantastic, read a book. I don't have a book. Oh, well, look what I got at the library today. Whew, thank you, Jesus. No, you need to help them out. They need a consistent time because a lot of our students are rushing through work in the school building so that when they get home, they can do nothing. If you make them slow down and bring something home, not only do they have a better chance of doing well on it, you have an opportunity to look it over with them. Make them slow down. Make them bring homework home because whether they have homework or not, that hour is designated as homework hour. So sure, you can get all your work done at school. I'll have something waiting on you. There are websites with worksheets that you can print off. There are books at the library that you can check out. There are CD-ROMs that you can use on your computer. But you need to have a consistent homework hour. You also need to create a routine for your family that includes what time they go to sleep, how long they sleep, when they play, when you work, when you study. There needs to be a consistent schedule in your family. Every day shouldn't be different. And if it is, there should be some regularity to the differences. You need to make sure that your children have a specific, clean, and quiet place to study and read. Well lit, quiet, plenty of space for their paper and books. It might be a coffee table, but that's okay. It might be a bed, but that's all right. They need to have a place where they go to study, where it's not loud. And then as a family, create times for activities that involve games of educational value. Doesn't have to be complicated. If you have a young child, play the color game. How many things can you find in this room that are blue? If you have an older child, you might read an article and have them read the article and then you discuss it together. You can do education without being an educator. When you go to the store, have them estimate how much your grocery bill is going to be. When you get a box of cereal, have them estimate how many cornflakes are really in the box and how many it would be per bowl. You can do lots of different things to get them thinking about math, reading, social studies, all the different subject areas in a way that's engaging and in a way that shows them that you value education, not only in the classroom, because our students need to begin to understand education doesn't stop when you leave the school building. So you have to be consistent. The next letter is the letter C. The letter C means that as parents, we must communicate. We have to communicate. Communication is key. There are various opportunities for communication. Parent-teacher conferences. In your packet that I gave you tonight, the very last page is all about parent-teacher conferences. Because a lot of people really fear going to parent-teacher conferences. They just don't show up. They just don't go. They're intimidated by going to speak with educators because they feel like they're the expert and I don't know very much at all, so they just don't go. And when you don't go, you forfeit your opportunity to speak to the issues and the questions that you have. So I gave you a form that just gives you some information about parent-teacher conferences. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but it tells you what you should expect. On the back, it tells you different things you can talk to the teacher about. And then it tells you how you should follow up, because we're not just talking to the teacher one time, but we're going to follow up with the teacher. If I had to highlight the most useful part of this sheet, it would be in the box on the back, where it says, "Be heard." Keep these principles in mind for a great parent-teacher conference. Assume best intentions. Don't think the teacher's out to get your child. 90% of the time, that's not true. E, it's nice to talk about, your new family pet, but really the emphasis should be on learning. H, there should be a collaboration between home and school. It's not a battle, it's a collaboration, it's a partnership. E, if there's situations that you're concerned about, please provide examples. Don't just say, one day Johnny was upset and the teacher's like, "What about?" And you're like, "Oh, I don't remember." A, be an active listener. Listen not to respond, but to actually hear what the other person is saying. Respect for all. That goes both ways, both as a teacher and as a parent. We need to be respectful. That means in our tone of voice. That means in our body language. That means in our choice of words. Make sure you're respectful. And then finally, dedication to follow up. This is not going to be our only meeting. This is just the beginning of our collaboration. So parent-teacher conferences, obviously report cards are a great time for you to communicate with your teachers. There's space, write a note, ask for a conference. If your child has special needs, you should be an active participant in the IEP meetings in the process. There's paperwork that comes home that asks for your input, that asks for your ideas, that asks for your goals for your child's future. Don't not fill that paperwork out. Don't leave it blank. Provide as much detail as possible. Again, read school newsletters or notes from classes. And something that a lot of teachers use is the assignment notebook or the agenda book. If they're asking you to look at it and sign it, that's not really just for you to grab it in the morning and throw your John Hancock on it. They kind of want you to know what your children are doing. They want you to make sure they finish everything, not just sign it so that they can get out of the door. Those are key ways to communicate. If you have a concern, teachers look at those assignment books. Write your concerns, write your questions there, so that communication is a two-way street instead of a monologue. As we continue, the last thing. The letter C means that as parents, we must care enough to ask for help when we need it. I'm a school teacher. I'm a math teacher at that. And my children now, my senior and my junior, sometimes have math problems that I can't help them do. I've either forgotten how to do it, or I haven't seen it put out in that way. It's put in a new format and I don't recognize it. And so as a parent, I have to be bold enough and care enough to admit when I don't know and look for resources to help my child. There are a lot of parents that when their children come home with questions and they don't know how to help, they get frustrated at the child and they just send them away as if the child is bothering them. As a parent, the most important thing you can do is care enough to find a resource that can help both of you. Now, in this packet that I've given you, there's a couple of resources that I want to talk about really quickly, and then we'll go to the next slide. The very first page is called Homework Helpers. At libraries all around the city, there are people waiting there to offer assistance with your school assignments. If you look at this list, there's a library near you. It gives you the times when people are there waiting to help with homework. Let's give them something to do. Take your child to one of these libraries, sit down with these people, and on these days there's help available. A real live person Not an app, not a computer, not a website, but there are people at these libraries on these days waiting to help you with your homework. Many times certified teachers or retired teachers. So if you need help with homework, you can't figure out a math problem, you can't figure out how to help them with that essay, look on this list and see if the time corresponds with help being available. The second page that I gave you in this little packet that I gave you is 9 websites that can help your child with homework. Some of these sites are designed specifically to support you with the new concepts being presented in Common Core. In addition, I've included not only sites that offer homework assistance, but sites that have information and tools to help students complete their work. These sites are useful for students of all abilities and ages, and many of them can be pulled up on your smartphone. So even if you don't have a desktop, if you have a tablet, if you have a smartphone, you can access a lot of these. I won't go through the whole list just because of time, but I want to highlight a couple that are my favorite. Number 2, Khan Academy. You can learn almost anything on Khan Academy's website. They have videos that walk you through different materials step by step. Another favorite of mine, and I know the high school students really love it, is number 5, Spark Notes. It's designed for older students. It's a resource students can go to in order to give themselves a better understanding of the books that they're reading. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes, the 2016 version. It's online, it's there to help them. But all of these websites are excellent to help. Discovery Education is wonderful as well. All of these are designed to give you resources. I want to highlight a couple other resources because we don't have to know everything. There are programs and people to help us. Some places you can go, I already mentioned homework helpers, but a lot of schools, specifically within Toledo Public Schools, are also connected with a program called Kids Unlimited. It's available in 7 different schools in our area, including Whittier, Stewart. I think King also has a Kids Unlimited program. There are tutors that will help with academics. They also do character development. They also involve mentoring. Leverett is another one. So check to see if your school is connected with the Kids Unlimited program. It's really affordable. I think it's like $25 maybe a week. It might even be a quarter. It's really a nominal fee, and your child is able to go there every single day, Monday through Friday, to get assistance with help. Some technology or other things that you can use. Again, I mentioned Khan Academy. There's an app for it. There's also a YouTube channel. Another favorite of my parents for math, when it gets a little harder, specifically for algebra, is an app you can download on your phone called PhotoMath. PhotoMath takes your camera on your phone and you hold it over the equation and you take a picture of the equation and it walks you step by step through how to complete that algebraic equation along with the answer. Now, parents, not only do we love it, so do our students. Okay? But if you need help checking your kids' math homework, it's a great app to use. Another great website for English and language arts. It has tons of student resources, ton of parent resources, and also teacher resources. It's readwritethink.org. If you need to make a timeline, if you need to do a graphic organizer, if you need help in planning an essay, readwritethink.org is an excellent website for your use. I couldn't hit everything that I needed to hit, but I wanted to hit some key things that I thought were really practical that would allow you to help your child this year. So it's as simple as the ABCs: awareness and availability, being consistent, communication, and caring enough to admit when you don't know, and finding resources to help you and your child. I want to pause because I'm still pretty good on my time. I'm proud of myself. Does anyone have any questions? Wow, high five me. No, Lisa. Carter, did you have a question? All right, air high five, love it. Yes, Terry. That's an excellent question. A lot of people think that for every grade, homework should increase by 10 minutes. So in kindergarten, we're not expecting a lot of homework to come home. Probably 10 minutes in kindergarten is a base level. As they go up each grade, you should expect 10 more minutes. So by the time they're in first grade, maybe 20 minutes, second grade, 30 minutes. Again, that's a loose kind of guideline that's out there. Again, a lot of teachers are kind of getting away from overloading students with homework because what we find is that parents do most of the work. Just honest, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I'm doing more work than my students are doing work, my children are doing work. That's another thing I want to challenge you with. It's okay to allow your child not to be perfect. So when you're helping them with their homework, don't help them to the point where you're doing the homework for them. They need to learn how to do it. You can guide them, but you should not be taking the paper and writing the answers for them. It's very obvious that your child hasn't learned it, and it's also very obvious to the teacher when the handwriting changes. Just saying. You don't want the handwriting to change because mom took the paper because she got frustrated and just did it for the child. That doesn't help you as a parent have a great image to the teacher. It also doesn't help your child. I'm going to say something else that the kids probably aren't going to like, and something I had to learn as a parent and as a teacher. Sometimes natural consequences are the best teacher. If a child is waited to the last minute to do a project, don't be their savior and let them go to sleep and finish the project for them. You're not helping them. You need to let the natural consequence of whatever grade they'll receive for waiting until the last minute be their teacher. If you finish the project for them and they've gone to sleep and they rested well and you're walking around with bags underneath your eyes, they haven't learned anything except I can wait until the last minute and someone else will do it for me. Let natural consequences be a teacher. Because in real life, if you don't meet the deadline at work, your coworker's not running over to your cubicle, picking up your work and getting it done for you. Any other questions? Yes, Greg. Yes. As an individual education plan, there are students that have learning disabilities. They may also have physical disabilities. They may just learn a different way. They may also have emotional disturbances that we're dealing with. Those students receive an individualized education plan. It's where the teachers, the parents, and all of the support staff in the building work together to find the best way to help the student be successful. So maybe a class might have 30 different goals that they're working towards. That student might only need 5. So we specify 5 goals for that student, and we specify time frames that we're going to look at how they're working towards those goals or making progress. And so at the end of a period, sometimes 1 year, sometimes 3 years, we'll look back at the individual education plan and we'll make amendments or changes to make sure that student is working towards success. Yes. Follows them. Once you have an IEP, it will follow you. Parents have a lot of power there. Parents have a lot of power because they can require a school to make sure that their child is in the least restrictive environment. They don't have to be in a class, pull out all by themselves. They have support teachers that can go into the classroom and help them. They can be pulled out for a couple of subjects. There's a lot of different ways that special education can look. What they find is that inclusion really is the best option for most students. Students that are in the regular classroom with support tend to do better than students that are in classes all by themselves because they're stretched, they're forced to think at another level. Teresa. Yes. They have told us that cursive writing is no longer a part of the benchmarks that we need to teach. I will tell you as a teacher in a school building that teachers are still teaching it. because it's necessary for adult life, and we recognize that. And we understand that education has trends just like fashion. So some things come in for a while and they look really great and everybody's like rah, rah, rah about it, and then bell bottoms are out again. Okay? It's true. We're teaching more to students now in earlier grades than we ever have. Some of the basics are getting lost at the early grades. That's why parent involvement is so important. You need to teach your kids the basics at home because sometimes the teachers aren't given the space and time that they would like to be to teach the basics. So I have 6th grade students that when I say, 12 plus 8 are still tapping their fingers to get to 20. That's because they need support at home. You need flashcards for addition and subtraction and multiplication, because if they can learn their basics with automaticity, then they can do much better when they get to the higher level cognitive skills that are needed when they get to those higher grades. But that requires parents' involvement. It can be something you do in the car at stoplights. You can make your kids challenge each other. It's nothing like competition to make a kid learn. Any other questions? Charlie. The biggest mistake that I've made as a parent, trying to save my kids on projects. I was, as a teacher parent, knowing what teachers expect and seeing what I thought was being produced, I pushed way too hard, trying to make my kids match my teacher idea of what a project should look like. That's probably my biggest mistake, being an overbearing teacher parent. I've been delivered. Kenyatta. Yes, my children will tell you we have a very consistent homework time. We have conversations every single day in the car about what their day has been like, about what's going on, about what they're learning. They will tell you that if they're doing homework in front of the television, I am very quick to turn it off and unplug it if necessary. We have a lot of conversations about the importance of education in our home. A lot. I don't make my children learn. My children aren't bright because I'm a teacher. They're bright because they know my husband and I are vested in their education and that they know it's important. And because it's important to us, it has become important to them. Kenyatta. Oh yeah, definitely. Now, I would say we've always been involved in their life educationally. We've never had a moment where we're kind of like, oh, do whatever you want. But I can tell the difference between myself and our family versus some of our peers, our contemporaries, where their kids are kind of struggling, where they've gone through a slump and they've had to try and pick them back up and get them back on track. You can definitely see the difference. I can also say as a teacher, I can see the difference. I've been in a lot of different school buildings. And schools that have high parent involvement, the students do tremendously better. I have to say this. In Central City schools, parents, I understand the challenges of working 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table. I understand the fatigue of coming home and being exhausted. I understand not having the time to go into classrooms and volunteer like you want to. But somewhere we've got to begin to make sacrifices in other areas outside of education, because education really is a doorway to a lot of different opportunities for our kids. I tell my students every single day, education is the key that unlocks choices. The less education you have, the less choices are available to you. Brooks. Believe it or not, kids aren't really as thrown by Common Core as adults are. Kids will learn what you present them with. Kids rise to the challenge of every expectation. It's really the adults that are thrown by Common Core, not so much kids. Because kids didn't look at the textbooks before they were Common Core. They just see what's in front of them. And Common Core, despite all of the negative press that it has received, presents information in multiple ways so that it catches different students at different places. So I teach math. In math, I may have taught before a concept in one way. Now I teach that concept in 5 different ways. So some of the students that wouldn't have caught it the standard way are able to catch it one of those 4 alternative ways that I present. It takes longer, it goes deeper, but it's not really a bad thing. And kids aren't thrown by it. Charlie. I would say as a teacher, allowing my students to connect with me in a way that's real. It's hard for someone to learn from you if they feel you don't care about them. So I walk a fine line. I'm not my students' friends. I tell them that every day. I'm not your friend. But I do care about you. And because I care about you, I'm going to push you. So when you feel that pressure on your back, it's not because I hate you. It's because I care about you and I want to see you be successful. So as a teacher, sometimes we disconnect from our classes, from our students, and when you disconnect, learning is always going to suffer. As a parent, my greatest success is my children. They are extraordinary. They love to learn. I love to see what they're doing. All of them individually are exceptional. I'm going to have Dr. Sweeney come up and close us out.
All right, let's give it up for Christine. It pays off in scholarships. Hello, somebody. Woo. Getting lined up for them scholarships. So keep pushing them. There's money attached to that. Great job. Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out to this Life University session on education and what every parent needs to know for a successful school year. I just challenge you to share that with someone else. Sister Roz always challenges us to take the information that we've received and share it with someone else so that we can have a greater retention. So I want to encourage you to do that. And if you have children at home, think of something that you heard tonight that you can begin to apply immediately. And I would tell you, I don't know if they got a copy of that, but we practice those ABCs, and all those things you can start like tomorrow. So if you're not doing that, I would do that. And what happens with those ABCs that she didn't say that I would like to say, you put something inside of the kids that once they leave your house, they can be successful when they get to college too, because that stuff needs to be a part of them before they get there. So let's stand. Now next Tuesday is going to be our worship Tuesday. So we're going to have full band. We're going to have a worship night. So first Tuesday every month is going to be our worship night. And we're just going to come out, kind of like a Sunday morning. It's going to be a time of worship and just praising and fellowshipping. There'll be some exhortation, but it's going to be a great evening. So I want you to get yourself ready. We're going to put some stuff out there on social media, share it, tag someone in it, repost it, all those things that you all know how to do really well. And it's just going to be a time of us coming together and praising and worship the Lord together, first Tuesday of every month. I'd like to thank all of the tech support tonight, Brother Brooks, Sister Caroline, Sister Christina, Brother Lucas, Brother Calvin. Any other tech support? Brother Tristan. All the support going on around here. Let's put our hands together.